Alright, so here's a picture that a friend of mine had on Facebook. It has a very bluish, pinkish, which is called magenta in photography, cast. We want to fix that. But the first thing we want to do is we want to fix up because it's too dark. So let's brighten it up using brightness and contrast. It's a little contrasty, so let's actually take down the contrast. So we lightened it up. So we know now that there's still an issue, right? The issue is that they don't have the correct skin color. Skin will always tell you the difference, whether it's okay or not. So we're going to now go in and we can do a layer here of color balance. So we're going to come in and do a color balance layer. Now you see you have these sliders, cyan, magenta, and yellow versus red, green, and blue. So if we think this is too blue and too magenta, then we can move those sliders away and fix that. And we can just click them, drag them. You don't want to do a whole lot because it'll really, really whack it out. So we're just going to drag them a little bit until it looks better. Turn the eyeball on and off and you can see the difference. A huge difference in that picture, yes? Huge difference. Okay, so that looks a lot better than it did when we turn all these off, and that was our original. With just really 5 seconds of work, we can make it a lot better. The other thing you can do is that you can do an auto color. So if you come under image, almost the adjustments are always all under image or image adjustments. But if we come to image and we go, there's auto, tone, contrast, and color. If we go color, the Photoshop will try to figure out what the color cast is. So if I click that, it kind of fixed it a little. Let's go back and see, it fixed it a little, but not quite enough, right? And there's another thing we can do if we don't do that. If we're unsure it has a color problem, is go to Image, Adjustments, and go down to Variations. Now, variations will give you a whole bunch of pictures here that are all different color balances. So this one says more yellow, more red, more whatever. All of that we can go through. So in the more yellow one, it looks a lot better, doesn't it? So if we pick that one, we say OK. That looks already better. Maybe it's a little too yellow, so let's come up to the color balance and let's bring that in a bit and make it not so much yellow. So you can use them in conjunction with each other. Remember, as always in Photoshop, there are a whole bunch of ways to do things. A whole bunch of ways to do the same thing. So you can either use the color balance adjustment in Photoshop, you can use the auto color, or you can use variations. But you want to see which one works the best, okay? Which one works the best, and you only do it on photos that really, really, really need it. So if we compare these two pictures, there's the difference. So it's like night and day on how much better the picture is when we've adjusted it, yes? All right. The next thing a lot of people have been talking about is straightening horizons. I've shown a few of you that personally. But I want to show you what that tool is. It's a non-instinctive tool in Photoshop. It's called the ruler. And it's the under the fifth one down. So you go down to 5, right click, actually 6. Right click and go to the ruler tool. When you click on the ruler tool, it'll bring up an actual ruler. So you see there it has a plus, and then it has a ruler in the middle, and then it has a arrow. The arrow is where we want to start, where we're judging our line. You can see that the line here, the horizon here, is crooked. So we want to straighten that out. So there are, as always in Photoshop, there are a couple ways to do it. One way is to take this ruler, point the little arrow at one end, hold the mouse key down, come across here and let go, find a straight line and let go. So now Photoshop has this line to use as reference. And then we come up here to where it says Straighten Layer, okay, right here. We click on that, and now you see that it tilts it to be straight, according to that one line there. But then all of these edges here have to be fixed, so we have to crop in. Every time we straighten our horizon, we have to crop the picture, always. 100% of the time we have to crop the picture. So in this case, when you see this checkerboard pattern behind anything in Photoshop, it means it's empty pixels. It means there's nothing there. So we can go in and crop around that, or there's a second way we can do it, which is using the cropping tool. So if I come in and I use the cropping tool, I want to come in and I want to do it a little bit in from the sides. I need to have room to maneuver. So if I come and hover over the edge of a picture, that, the handles, it'll give me a straight arrow here. You see that straight arrow? Or if I come and hover over the edge, you see that now the arrow is curved, slightly curved. That tells you that you can rotate this image. So now I'm going to rotate that until it has straight lines in it. And you notice that it has a grid coming up to help me do that. Okay? Then I can hit enter, and it's now made that horizon straight, but it's cropped the edges. Every time you straighten a horizon, it will crop the edges of your picture. The more crooked it is, the more it crops. Let me show you another one. Let's do this one. This one came off the internet. It's super crooked, and I want to show you how much is going to get cropped out of that. So let's use the cropping tool first. We'll come in, go all the way in here. We'll come up here and try to rotate that to straighten that out as much as possible. And then hit enter. And that's still not straight, is it? So let's do it again. It's very crooked, isn't it? All right, something like that. So now we have a straight horizon. So if we backtrack and we go and we use the ruler tool, we can come and draw a line along this horizon here, and you're going to see how much of the edges you're going to lose when we straighten it. So it's a lot now because it was so crooked. So we would have to come in with our cropping guide inside all of those lines and lose that much of our picture. So it's much better. The rule is basically try to shoot with straight horizons so that you don't have to do this. Especially when it's super crooked, to try to straighten it is kind of a pain. But that's a couple ways to straighten your horizon in the picture. Okay, so now we want to use something called shadows and highlights. All the stuff I'm showing you today, basically, I want you to understand that really you want to use with caution, because they can really wreck your picture if you do it wrong. So the picture here shows a yellow fire hydrant, but the fire hydrant, you hardly see that it's yellow. It's super, super dark, right? So the first thing we want to do is let's lighten this picture. If we lighten up the picture, what will happen to the background? It'll go too light. The background looks nice, right? We like those clouds. So really, what is it that we want to lighten? The shadow areas, the fire hydrant, where the shadow areas are. Now, the problem with this tool, the shadow and highlight tool, is that there is no, on our layers palette, under the tool menu here, adjustment tool layer, there is no shadow and highlight. You have to do it separately. So the first thing we want to do is duplicate our layer. I can do Control J, or I can right click and just go duplicate layer. And I'm going to call this the shadows and highlights layer. Okay? So now you see that in our layer, it's called shadows and highlights. So I'm going to be on this layer, and I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, and I'm going to go about 3/4 of the way down to where it says shadows and highlights. Now when I click on that, a slider bar is going to open up. The default on it is 35% for the shadows to lighten up. If I use that slider and go all the way to the left to turn that off, you can see our original picture. Now as I slide it to the right, you watch the shadow areas open up and get details in them, right? It's not affecting the background because that's the highlight area. So it's not really affecting that, it's only affecting where the shadows are in this picture. So but one thing we want to watch is there's a halo effect that occurs if we go too far. So we want to lighten up those shadows to get lots of detail in here, but we don't want to lose detail here. Now I could make this a little darker by using the highlight bar and darkening the shadows a bit. Okay, but sometimes what happens when I do that is I get a halo around here. And I really want to watch that. I don't want that halo to happen. So I can preview that on and off. Quite a bit of difference, right? So then I'm going to say OK, but I still need to add contrast in, so I'm going to come in and add a brightness and contrast layer. So I can take that, maybe make it a little bit brighter, add a little bit of contrast to it. So then if we go in and we shut those off, there's the brightness and contrast, there's the shadows and highlights, and there's our original. So there's a very huge difference in those. Now, I've already told you about the dodging and burning tool, but I just want to sort of refresh your mind about that. I can also come in and dodge this and make this a little lighter, right? So if I come in and I find the dodge tool here, whoops, the dodge tool here, how do I make my brush bigger or smaller? Bracket keys. Right bracket makes it bigger, left bracket makes it smaller. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm just going to come in and lighten this up in the middle here. Oops, I need to be on that layer. Then I'm going to lighten it up. Okay, so I can come in and make my brush smaller. Oops, keep grabbing the wrong thing, sorry. Make my brush smaller. I'm going to come in here and lighten up around here. Make it even smaller, lighten up this. So that kind of looks natural. And we have lots more detail in it now than we did before. So from here to here, where we started, where we ended up, a big difference in that picture. Let me do one more shadows and highlights one, or a couple more, because this is a cool tool, but I don't want you to overdo it. I'm going to show you what overdoing it looks like. So in this picture, let's go right away to duplicating this layer, calling it shadows and highlights. And I'm going to come over here to image adjustments and go to shadows and highlights. So again, the default is to lighten the shadows 35%. I don't want to lighten them that much. I only need to lighten them a little bit. It's the highlights I really have to be concerned with in this picture. So now I'm going to take the highlights and move that slider to the right to darken them. So you see the sky get darker? You see this area get darker and this area get darker? Because those are the highlights. So you see it get darker. But if I go too far, what happens? I get that halo effect here. And you really don't want that. So you want to watch that you only go far enough right before that halo effect appears. Because that halo effect is how those of us that judge photo contests around always know when someone's done something too far, because we get that halo effect. So here I'm going to just go enough to darken that sky without without gaining the halo. So I click the preview on and off, and it did make it much more rich, didn't it? Another way to make a picture more rich is to go down and use the hue and saturation bar. This is the hue and saturation. Okay. The hue is oops, here it is. The hue is the bar that gives you different colors. The saturation is the richness of the color. On the left, it's going to be left rich and less saturated. On the right, it'll be more saturated. We can always tell new people to Photoshop because they like really saturated images. If I go really far to the right, I can whack out my image entirely. But I don't want to do that, so let's go back to 0 here. So at 0, then I'm where I started. I want to move the saturation slider just a bit to get more richness in the tones. So it still looks natural. Okay? So that still looks natural here. If I turn that eyeball on and off, you can see that I made the colors richer without sacrificing the originality of the original colors. But if I go too far, then it looks fake. And we don't want that. We don't want the colors to look fake. Even though you think they look cool, they don't look real. And our objective is to try to just make things look like our eye sees them. So we want to come down. We can darken this a little bit, but we don't want it to be whacked out. So the hue and saturation, the saturation will give you stronger color and make it look really neat like that. Okay? So let's also look at this picture for shadows and highlights. Shadows and highlights only work almost always in pictures that have sunlight in them. Strong shadows and harsh sunlight. So in this picture we have a very shadowed framing, right? And we have a very too bright image back here, right? So we want to go in, we're going to duplicate this layer. And we're going to come over to image adjustments and go to shadows and highlights. Now, automatically it lightened up the shadows 35%. That's way too much for this image. So I'm going to come down with that slider and maybe come at like 8%. I want to lighten up the shadows, but that isn't really the problem. The problem is the highlight areas, the bright areas. So I want to bring those to get some detail in there. If I go too far, I'm going to get this little, you see the little halo effect around here? So I don't want to go that far, but I do want to get some detail in there. So I can come over something like that. If I press the preview on and off, you can see how much more detail I got in there. But now we're starting to get a halo here, so let's fix that. Let's kind of move this so we don't get so much of that halo. Okay? And then we could come in and selectively burn that area. So we can come in and say this needs to be a little bit darker. And so I'm going to grab the burning tool, and I keep grabbing the wrong tool. Sorry, burn tool. And I'm going to burn that in a little bit and make it a little darker. Okay? So that's selectively. Remember, burning is for selected areas. So I can burn that in a little bit and make it better. So if we turn that on and off, we can see what a difference we made in that picture. All right. Now, let's talk about you guys know the content-aware fill one, right? You all good with that? Pretty much everybody is. So we don't have to go over that again. Okay, so let's do one more and see what a difference this will make. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to duplicate my layer. And I'm going to go to Image Adjustments and go to Shadows and Highlights. Now, do the shadows need to be lightened up in this picture? Not really, because they're already fairly light. As long as we have detail in the shadows, that's all we need. But the highlight area is very, very bright. So we're going to come and bring that down just until we start, right before we get the halo effect. So this is a huge difference here in this picture. Right? So I'm going to say OK. If I turn that layer on and off, you can see the difference. Now I want to show you one other tool that's really cool. It's called the Spot Healing Brush tool. It's in the same place where the right below the one where the ruler tool is. It's got a little band-aid. If you click on it and go to Spot Healing Brush tool, you're going to get a brush. And an area where you have something that you want to get rid of that's matched around the outside or it's all even, it will try to heal that area. So if I come and just go over it with my brush, you see how it made that go in? And it works really great for spots you want to get rid of without using the clone stamp tool. Now, do you think it's going to work on this one? No, because it's going to take away the ends of those palm fronds. So if I come over right now and do that, it took away the end of the palm fronds. So we don't want to do that. So this type where you have a spot that's in something else, it needs to be all empty around it, and then you can use the healing brush tool and it works really great. All right? Anything else? Questions from you guys on this? Use those tools selectively for only the things that you need to use them for. That's what we care about, is that we want to fix problems. We don't want to create more problems that weren't there originally. Remember, as always with Photoshop, less is more. Less is more. All right, I think we showed you all the ones I want to show you. Yes. All right, so you want to work on that a little bit today.